Welcome back, everybody, to the Learning Can't Wait podcast. I am so excited to introduce today's guests. We have an incredible panel on a topic that I am learning more and more about every single day. And I'm going to pause here because I made a mistake. Welcome back to the Learning Can't Wait podcast, everyone. I am so excited to introduce to you our next two guests. We have a panel of folks that have done some incredible work together and continue to pursue the field of study in their everyday lives. We have Kimberly Smith, the co-lead for the Center for Inclusive Innovation at Digital Promise. First off, Kimberly, welcome.
Welcome. Thank you.
And we have someone you know very, very well that I'm just meeting. We have Seth Walker, a freshman at Troy University. Welcome, Seth.
Hey, thanks for having me.
It's always an honor when I get to meet folks who have spent considerable time together working on a project. And I'm very excited for folks to hear about what you two have done together and what you continue to do in your forward-facing onward path. But let's start off by asking both of you how you came to be the personal and professional version of yourself. Kimberly, I'll start with you.
Wow. Well, I love this question. I don't get often to talk about, the roots, if you will, of, my work and my why. So thank you for kind of giving me an opportunity to share just a little bit, and it may sound cliche, but I am going to really give credit to my parents, who, in the time that I grew up, it was really an against all odds kind of set of circumstances for African American folks. And both of them knew the value of education, the need for education, and how education is a game changer in one's life in terms of what you can pursue and how far you can stretch. And so um, I credit both of them because they made some really difficult decisions that enabled me to go to a really good school system. And it literally made all the difference in the world. But literally, they moved us 1 mile down the road from um, a boundary that separated one of the worst school systems in the state from the best school system in the state. And it's still hard for me to believe, going back to my hometown, that 1 mile of difference really changes the opportunity and trajectory of students. And so that was planted in me early on and has been part of the work I've done all my life, is really doing whatever I can to um, help students and families kind of literally move that mile, right? To make that transition to a place where they're able to have opportunities for students to grow and thrive. And so I have to give all my credit to my parents.
It's not trite in the slightest. And I appreciate your vulnerability and sharing your own journey. So often when folks come on here, they can thank somebody who really changed their trajectory. But what I appreciate about your story, Kimberly, is how you've used the great gift of a good education or the importance of an education to change so many others' lives. I'm really thrilled that your work at Digital Promise has impacted one of the other guests' lives too and changed the trajectory of his focus of study and his career path. So I'm going to pass the baton over to Seth right now. And Seth, I'll ask you the same question. I know you're not yet arrived on your professional journey, but you're working on it. So can you tell us how you came to be and even how you came to know Kimberly and the work that we're going to talk about today at Digital Promise?
I'm gonna piggyback exactly off of what she said, giving my parents a lot of the credit, especially being going through elementary school and middle school. I always told Kim I was probably the most talkative kid out of the entire class at every turn, and then trying to translate that, really trying to hone in on my personality and translating that to be a little bit more professional. More professional. I'll talk about anything. So it really came down to being able to talk about the right things is what it came down to be. And it's really meeting the right people. Like you said, meeting people like him. I had my middle school principal sit me down. I wasn't always the best kid that people would say. And he just sat me down. Was like, okay, Seth, you have a talent, and believe it or not, your talent is to talk, and a lot of people don't have that talent and know how to hone in on that. He said, this is the time where you have to change the trajectory of your life. And meeting people like I always tell Mr. Young is a great man. And meeting people like Mr. Young and Kim who are wanting to put people and students, mainly students, and elevate them to the next level and let them see what they need to be doing to get to the next level. And I feel like that made all the difference.
I'm a fellow talks too much in class person. And the joke that I always talk about with my friends and my spouse and my colleagues is it has served me well. Look at I host a podcast now. I help run a company that serves, thousands upon thousands of kids in education in which I get to talk all day, every day, about things I'm passionate about. So I love meeting a fellow talks too much in class person. And you're right. It's about talking at the right times about the right things, and it's also about listening. So
Yeah,
I love that you learned that early. I don't know that I learned it as early as you.
Yeah, I'll say that my dad was not so much my dad. My dad's a very laid back guy. He didn't really say much, which is weird because I say everything. But my mom was more like, said, I'm not gonna say that I regret it, but all those times that we would go to parent teacher conferences and get letters home talking about how much you would talk in class and quote unquote distract other students. I said, we wish that they didn't have quote unquote punished me as much for doing all that
Mm.
talking because now that it is they say you always find more ways to talk. Once you find you're doing this, you always find more ways to talk. So I feel like that's really been a big thing that they had to fix themselves to help me be able to do what I do.
That is awesome. I love that. I love that. Can you talk a little bit about how you both met? And I'll let either one of you jump in here, but what were the circumstances in which you two were connected?
Okay, we can
Yeah.
go ahead if you want. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'll kick it off because, it is very, serendipity is for real, right? I think in terms of how Seth and I have crossed paths, we're fortunate to have Talladega County Schools in our League of Innovative Schools, which is our national network of school districts, rural district in Alabama, about 7,200 kids. And Dr. Suzanne Lacey and Dr. Brooke Morgan and Kim Knight have been just strong members of the league. And so, what's been really powerful for me is that I get to work with school district leaders who actually uh, have the mindset for innovation and for pushing the edge of education and kind of making what has can be thought of as impossible possible. And so that cybersecurity came to life in Talladega County Schools because of Dr. Lacey and the team. And so it really was just an opportunity to offer a new pathway to students. And it was really interesting because we said at the very beginning, like students have to emerge with real credentials, right? This has to enable students to be able to step into post-secondary and industry. And then in Talladega County, they just figured it out, right? They brought industry together, post-secondary, created this 3-year program for students, and Seth enrolled. He'll tell you how his story came to be, but literally that's the spark on my end that led me to kind of where we are today.
And Seth, talk a little bit about what it was like the first time you set foot in that program, in that cybersecurity class. How did it feel different from other experiences you had in high school?
I'm gonna say initially, I definitely felt out of place. I'll tell you that. Everything. It was a very quick turnaround from how I got into the class and then actually being inside the class. I remember telling you earlier about the kickoff that we did, and but thanks to Dr. Lacey and Dr. Morgan and Digital Promise, people like Kim who helped that happen. Initially getting to the program, I felt completely out of place. I had a friend named Edward Ponder who's probably hands down the smartest person I know. Definitely the smartest person I know. That he's a wizard, I tell you. And he got me into the class. He was like, Seth, he didn't ask me. He told me. He was like, Seth, you're going to take this cybersecurity class and you're going to love it. This is a guy that is so smart. You really just don't tell him no because like you can't. There's no way he's wrong. So I'm gonna listen to him. And I did it. But getting in and being with him and being in a totally different environment, I felt out of place. like going through certain materials and just going through and seeing the way that everyone else presented themselves. And it was new for me in a new environment that I feel like I wasn't really thrown into the fire, but I was grabbed by the arm. It's like, you better not let go and just hold on for the ride.
So what changed? You didn't feel in place,
Yeah.
but now you feel very much included in
Yes.
that community.
It
So what
was
changed?
it was just the different experiences and opportunities that I was given. Like Kim said, I give even more props to Talladega County and Lincoln High School as a whole. They gave me seems like every opportunity possible, and well, maybe we might get to it later. But Kim was telling me like the stuff that I had in my area. I thought it was normal. I thought every single kid was getting this experience, and that just wasn't the case. The pathway and the experiences that I was given were totally different from the materials that I had to actually learn the material of cybersecurity, going through things like skills builders to at a very elementary level, and then working up to like virtual labs and things of that matter. It was that those opportunities, and then having the opportunity, like I told you earlier, to kick off our cyber program and introduce that to other people throughout the county. And it's just those opportunities allowed me to expand my knowledge on the matter. And then those opportunities just led to even more opportunities that just kept coming down the line.
Opportunity begets opportunity, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
Kimberly, can you talk a little bit about the scope of the program? So Seth is explaining how it was at the beginning and kind of the high level of how it evolved for him. But can you talk about what are like the hallmarks of this program? What makes it really unique from the designer perspective?
Yeah, I think there's a couple things. When it comes to pathways in high school, it's really important to have a sequenced experience for students, right? So our cyber initiative is a 3-year course of study, I should say. Um, Industry recognized credential. So students emerge with a CompTIA Security Plus uh, credential, which may sound like, a bunch of kind of ABC 1, 2, 3, but it when in Cyberland, right? CompTIA Security Plus is the baseline credential for folks that are stepping into cybersecurity, and then also dual enrollment, right? So sequence of courses, credential, dual enrollment. And so we structured it in such a way to be a 3-year progression. But what's really great about cyber is a couple of things. One is that every student understands cybersecurity. All right, you don't have to be a coder because your everyday students are navigating their identity being protected, right? They understand the internet. They know the kind of the threat, if you will, of the data breaches that happen every single day. So it's a subject that they can really relate to because they're living and breathing kind of being in a technology-based world where the idea of cyber threats are very real down to the actual kind of individual experience. So it's very relatable for students. It's accessible, right? It's a technology pathway that students can step into much more broadly, and so the access to it is we have 25% of our first kind of enrollment numbers were females, right? So it really kind of enables folks from all kind of angles and diversity to step into this. And then I would say that the progression is really important, and also the mentorship, the internships, and Seth will tell you about the events. So cyber competitions are happening all the time, and so there's a real world aspect of this that I think is pretty unique when it comes to high school pathways.
Yeah, you named some important hallmarks there. I'm curious about these events. Seth, can you share a little bit more color on what Kimberly mentioned?
Of course, these events is really what crafted my knowledge and gave me the real world experience, and it's what told me that this is something that I want to do. Especially when those first started, I was nervous to get started, but we started off, I believe, with Cyber Patriot. It's an organization through the Air Force. One of the first things that we got into, and it's a competition between at a state and national level. So it's just like you go through and you're sat down in front of a computer, you have Ubuntu, then you have Windows, then you have Windows servers, and you just go through and you solve real world cybersecurity problems on that virtual desktop. And you just go through and it really helped me craft my skills. Eventually going into it, it was very difficult, especially being beside someone who seemed like they knew everything. He's like, "No, there's no way I'm helping you. You have to figure it out on your own." So it was just like those things really helped us out. And then going into we got into lots of capture the flag competitions. But we did the University of Alabama capture the flag competition, and then things like that. And then definitely going on to probably the biggest accomplishment that our program had was going to the National Cyber Summit in Huntsville, and that this is like an amazing accomplishment, finishing third at that competition amongst other national and not this collegiate level colleges. Beat out schools like Ole Miss and Mississippi State. You have five high schools. You take five, no, six high schoolers. You take them to a national competition, and they leave third with $1,000. I mean,
That's
you can't beat that.
amazing.
Those are real life opportunities that this program gave us, and the opportunity, like the opportunities now. I'm talking to you now based off of a program that was introduced to me in high school. So, like you said,
Yeah.
the opportunities just keep coming.
Wow. That is incredible. You must have all been so proud of yourselves in that moment.
Yes, it was amazing.
Seth, I'm curious because often, Kimberly mentioned how cybersecurity is a major business industry. It's required for organizations to have a strong, comprehensive, compliant programming of cybersecurity, but it's also very personal. What do you think is one misconception people your age might have about cybersecurity and the career pathways that you want to clear up?
I'm definitely gonna say a lot of people see cyber. I get this question all the time. I always correlate this question to when people ask me, "What is cybersecurity?" And like I always use the analogy: if you see a guy sitting in a basement with a dark hood over his head, thinking that he's trying to hack into something or knock down a firewall, tap into a mainframe. But I feel like that's just not the way it is. Now there are some people who are like that, sadly,
Sure.
but it's definitely a misconception. That's all it is. A lot of people see cybersecurity as an offensive thing, but it's a lot of defensive. It's in the name security,
Mm,
and going through and thinking that and trying to implement that. It's in everything. Everything that happens around you has some form of cybersecurity, especially going into a time in life where everything is online, everything is on the web. So really letting people know that they have to be able to defend themselves and have to know the information, thinking that it's just there or someone's just going to do it for them. They have to take the measures themselves and realize that I have a role in making sure things are cyber secure. Now you have teachers and administrators and people who are ahead of companies going through cybersecurity trainings at jobs and at schools to make sure that they're not liable for things happening like that. So I feel like that's a misconception that people think they don't have a role in cybersecurity, but everyone individually, every single day, like you said earlier, plays a role in cybersecurity.
mm, it's so valid. I think about phishing scams all the time when I think about my
Yeah.
cybersecurity training.
Yeah.
Kimberly, this program has grown very quickly from Talladega all the way to seven more sites. What factors drove that expansion?
Yeah, so first of all, I have to take a step back and just share that we actually launched this program with a national cohort in 2022. So there's actually 10 districts across the country that have cyber initiatives from New York to California to Ohio. And Talladega County was one of those 10, their 10 original cohort. And so the opportunity for Talladega and in Alabama was born out of a couple things. One is the state has a lot of policy conditions that support workforce development pathways. They just announced a new workforce diploma at the state level that enables students to choose to take a workforce diploma path in high school. They have the talent triad in Alabama, where uh, industry folks that are seeking, that are looking for talent, connect with the talent pipeline and credential programs. So the conditions in Alabama are really ripe for pathways. And the region where Talladega County is, 7 counties in that region, there's a regional infrastructure that is just powerful. So we basically built the infrastructure for cyber on top of the infrastructure that they already had, industry, post-secondary, K-12, were already working together. They already had that web established, that relational capital was set. And so it made such a beautiful kind of foundation, if you will, for us to bring this type of initiative in. Just yesterday, I was in Alabama. Seth, I didn't tell you this, but I flew down there because we had our meeting with our regional alliance. So there are 35 people in that room, right, that are now engaged in thinking about how to scale this out. So that infrastructure piece is incredible, and we're simply building on what Alabama already has in place.
Hope Seth's not going to be upset that you it came to Alabama without telling him.
Oh no, I was aware. If where were y'all at when you came down?
Yeah, we're at the Create Center in Oxford.
Oh yeah, I had a friend, LJ Millender. I'm not sure if you
Oh,
saw him
Jay
there
was
from
there.
Lincoln. Yeah, he
Yeah,
was there. He was like, Seth, I'm nervous. They got me here with all these people. I don't know what to do. And I was like, just be yourself. Like they have you there for a reason. You're in a room with a lot of intelligent people who are not gonna steer you in the wrong direction. He shot me a text and I was like, hey, just focus and listen to what they're saying. But yeah, I was aware, but I know you had came down, but I'm glad you had a good time.
yeah, he was great. LJ was great.
I love this. I love the way you can really just see how this program has brought so much to so many. And, Kimberly, the fact that Alabama has conditions and instituted a lot of practices and policy to foster workforce development obviously supports that. I'm curious if there are other places where you're implementing pathways of this nature, and seeing similar success.
Yeah, so we have what we call the statewide pathways blueprint. So it's a model we've developed where it's the kind of intersection of state, region, industry, post-secondary, and K-12. And that blueprint really talks about the conditions that are necessary for these types of pathways to be conceived of and then launched, but also sustained, right? Sustained is really key. At this, we are actually looking at other states where the other 10 districts have launched to understand the conditions based on this blueprint. So the work in Alabama has really helped us real understand the conditions for readiness to be able to do this in an effective way. We believe in kind of this almost this interconnected state and regional approach to pathways, that the regions have to be, at the table in a meaningful way. So we're in the process of an analysis to understand other places where we're going to be able to scale.
Yeah, one of the conversations I have often, I think I had it with Jean-Claude when he was on the podcast, is the regionalization and localization of learning, teaching and learning practices can be both encouraging because you can innovate and try things in some places and then hopefully encourage others, but also limiting because great ideas don't always have the same kind of ferocity and speed when you want to implement them. So the analysis sounds like a very integral component of this, but it definitely seems like the results speak for themselves, meeting Seth and hearing these stories. Seth, I'm curious, now that you have completed this program and you're off to college, where is this taking you? Like, what are you doing with this experience that you had, and how is it impacting your trajectory?
It's definitely made me more of a pioneer for what I do. I know a lot of kids come out of high school and go into college and they just look for like you said, an industry job and just try to stay under the radar and just go about their business and live their life. But now that I've been through this program and seen what it can do for students and students like me, it's made me want to be more a part of that. It's made me want to express it more and how cybersecurity can change. And this program exactly can change so many more lives. I'm going around campus and going to SGA meetings and going to one-on-one meetings and telling people, "Oh, your major's undecided. So have you thought about cybersecurity?" I just had a one-on-one elite men meeting earlier, and there's a guy in there that's like, "I'm thinking about cybersecurity." As soon as the meeting was over, I was like, "Yes, you should definitely do cybersecurity and check out this, and that." And it's been wonderful, and especially going through and thinking about all the opportunities that are soon to open up, and especially going through keeping this going. I know Huntsville has now become Alabama or United States hub for anything space wise. That's now in Huntsville, and then right down the road, Pike County is getting ready to start a missile headquarters with Lockheed Martin. So especially taking down this pathway, lots of more job opportunities are opening up. And I would love for me and the other people that I'm translating this message to can be a part of that.
One thing can I add, Haley, to this is that I think one thing that Seth is touching on that really is powerful to think about is that often students in rural communities end up leaving their communities because the labor market is just not there and the career opportunities are not there. And the other piece about this regional approach is that um, when you have 7 districts, 8 districts, and industry, right, and post-secondary all coming together, it allows the community, these 7 counties, to actually create a thriving talent pipeline and labor market, right, which feeds into the economic development of the region, of the rural region, and the incentive for folks like Seth, right, to stay right in the vicinity of his where he was raised. So I just want to name that there is a really important community thriving component of this in really looking at how you support multiple districts and multiple partners in a specific geographic area that can really create opportunities for students.
Thank you for,
And
yeah, go ahead,
yeah,
Seth. No,
and
please.
to touch on that, she's totally right. I just talked to Kim Knight, the CT director at Talladega County. I just talked to her recently, and Miss Knight is amazing. I was telling her that I talked to Edward, and he was saying that when he's done with what he's doing, he said he's coming back. He was like, me and him, like we haven't forgot like how we got here. And I was talking to another friend of mine who went through this pathway, Jackson Callahan. He's going to be an engineer. He's up at Auburn. So we got probably the smartest guy in our graduating class went to UAB, and another guy going to Troy, and one guy going to Alabama, another guy going to Auburn. The pipeline, it's all over the state. And to be able to bring that back and say that this happened because of Talladega County and because of places like people like Digital Promise, stuff like that, that's how we can continue to pioneer for this program.
I was going to ask you both if you had a chance to pitch this model to education leaders nationwide, what would be the headline? But I think that's the headline right there. Yeah, I think Seth Kimberly, you just covered the headline pretty beautifully. You
Yeah,
know,
I
wow.
think it's fair. I think when I want people to understand the economic development and the ability for students and families to thrive piece of this. So often that's taken for granted.
Hmm.
And we really do need leaders with the mindset and who are believers, right? That these types of initiatives can it's yes, it's about the credential, but it's also about the community. It's also about the economic development and the thriving of a community. And that's really important. That's kind of that's the lifeblood, if you will, of these states and these regions and these communities that have been, quote unquote, dying. No, right? There's an opportunity to really create thriving communities and folks to stay close to their families and live really, productive and kind of lives that where they can move forward with their families and feel like they have a job and work that they love to do, and it's all kind of feeding into one another.
I'm curious if you both feel like the rapidly evolving sphere sector of artificial intelligence plays a part in the overall necessity of cybersecurity pathways. How do you think it changes the landscape? How do you think it uh, kind of raises its importance? What are your thoughts there?
Oh, that's definitely been the talk of the town. I tell you that. Every article, every post, even every podcast seems like you come across now is mentioning what role is artificial intelligence going to bring. And me and Kim sat with another panel and talked about this, and it's very important. And people see it mainly as like your question about misconception about cybersecurity, but now more of a misconception about AI is like I was saying that AI is a tool. Someone has to be able to use that tool. You can't pick up a hammer or just sit there and watch a hammer and expect it to hit the nail on the head by itself. It doesn't work that way. Someone has to be able to program and someone has to be able to use that tool. So I feel like the main thing isn't about cybersecurity taking jobs, as most people see it. It's about how many jobs that cybersecurity is going to give that where someone shouldn't be in that place. especially being, like I said, with the programs that we did with Cyber Patriot and Skills USA, things like that. You will be able to tell when someone is using artificial intelligence because as a human, you're made to make mistakes and you're going to see those mistakes, but not all those mistakes you're penalized for. So when you have someone who's most likely not qualified for a job, and you can go in and just give them cyber or give them AI, and then they can do the job effectively with AI. But then when it comes down to fixing a problem that's going to take a human to be able to go in and fix and know what it is that they're working on, that's been dependent on AI for so long, I feel like that's where the real problems come in. Like I was saying, talking about job opportunities, especially in Alabama, the amount of job opportunities that are getting ready to open up in Alabama within the next 3 to 4 years, it is astronomical. Like out of anywhere between NASA being based out of Huntsville, now all of space being based out of Huntsville, and then the new missile defense place and coming to Pike County, and with all the depots with Fort Rucker and Anderson Army Depot, the cybersecurity jobs that are opening up are everlasting. AI cannot take 6,000 job openings. It just simply doesn't work that way. But you also need to think about how many jobs AI going to give to people who don't need to be working those jobs.
No, it's such a good point. And I imagine there's a greater need for cybersecurity as artificial intelligence starts to
Yes.
personify or replicate the individuals or falsify individuals. So I think you're spot on, and I it was kind of a leading question there, Seth, but you more
Yeah.
than answered and provided color for the folks listening. As my final question, I want to ask both of you what advice you would give a student who is starting their pathway in school if they're considering cybersecurity, what you might tell them. Kimberly, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I would say that I think that the main thing to do is to try, right? To just, step into it and give it a shot. I think that um, students in high school are in a very exploratory mode. I think students should try a lot of pathways, right? I did, if I was redesigning high school, students would be able to try, 5 to 10 pathways, like in very small doses, right? Early on, like, freshman year, and then be able to then start to lean into where their interests are. So with cyber, I would say step into it, give it a shot, give it a try. If you can go to cyber camp, or something where you can put your, kind of toe in the water and you can try a cyber camp or some type of cyber kind of beginning experience, go for it. If you can get into Cyber One as a class and be able to try that out, just try it out. If you don't like it, you can always jump to something else and just use what you learned in your personal life as it relates to cybersecurity. But Seth, what do you want to add on? Because you're the student, so you got a better perspective than me.
I was gonna say, stay the course, 100% stay the course. I was blessed enough to have a teacher and kind of mentors, peer mentors in my class that threw me into the fire. Cybersecurity is, I wouldn't say for me personally, with the small things and the more beginner level stuff, it's not the most interesting unless you're just all for and ready to go. But for a student who's trying it out, I would say stay the course for just a little bit longer than you would because the more in depth you get with cybersecurity, the more interesting it becomes. I feel like the reason that was able to fall in love with it so fast is because I was thrown into the fire. I was thrown into some of the more difficult concepts to begin with. So the part of me learning that and understanding that was the most satisfying feeling that you could get. Being able to see something so difficult at first, but then being able to work through it is very promising and it feels great. So I would just say stay the course.
You both have been incredibly insightful and shared so much that I did not know about this program, but also possibilities for schools to provide for students. Thank you for coming on the Learning Can't Wait podcast.
Thank you, Haley. Appreciate the invitation. Always fun for Seth and I to connect virtually in person, whatever we can make it work. And thank you for giving us an opportunity to share with you today. I really appreciate it.
Of
Thanks
course.
for having us. It was great. I had fun.
And thank you to everybody who tuned in today.